Hi, I'm Dr. Marianne Cintron, founder and president of Step by Step Dyslexia Solutions. This is our second podcast on Music Empowers Learning. And I have with me today, my guest is Amanda Harrison, a parent from North Carolina who connected with me on Facebook when I asked the question, do any parents out there remember their children having to leave the classroom when reading started? And Amanda had a very interesting response, and she definitely advocates for her son. So welcome, Amanda.
Hello, hi.
We're going to have Amanda share a minute or two about what's going, about her life, and then I will ask her some questions. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Amanda.
Like I say, I'm Amanda Harrison. I have a now 10-year-old son who has dyslexia, dysgraphia. Dyslexia runs in our family on both sides. So our journey started when my son was in second grade. But at that point, dyslexia wasn't on the radar for him. He started out with a speech and language delay and had services when he was age 3 in pre-K, but really dyslexia wasn't on the radar for any of us at all. So it was a very interesting journey that kind of took twists and turns. And as we started to learn more about dyslexia, I realized that there were lots of signs that I should have seen as a parent that I just had no clue, what my son was trying to tell me really, but couldn't actually put it into words.
Okay, very interesting. So I wanted to ask, did you recognize anxiety or behavior issues before Jay was identified as being dyslexic?
I didn't realize it at the time, but yes, there were very, very clear signs that something was going on. And after the fact, probably about a year after the fact, actually, Jay quietly whispered to me in the car and said, "Do you remember when I used to do this, Mom? This is what was happening." And it was heartbreaking to hear it. But in actual fact, what was happening in second grade, Jay's teacher reached out to us and said that Jay was going to the bathroom an awful lot, 2 or 3 times within the hour, and that she was concerned about it. So we took him to the doctors. We went for lots of different testing, and they couldn't find anything wrong. And this went on for quite a number of months, and it continued to happen, and we didn't know why, but we couldn't get to the bottom of it. And the behaviors continued. He seemed totally fine in all other aspects of his life, but this kind of odd behavior of removing himself from the classroom just kept on happening. And it wasn't until a year later, after we realized that dyslexia was actually an issue for him, he whispered to me in the car when we were going home one day, and he said, "Mom, do you remember when I used to go, come out of the classroom?" And I said, "Yes," because it was a very odd conversation that just came out of nowhere. He said, "I used to go and sit in the bathroom and just so that I didn't have to read," and it was heartbreaking to hear, because he did that as a way to avoid having to read in class, and he was only 7 at the time. So for a 7-year-old to do that, he must have been so full of anxiety.
Wow.
It was heartbreaking to hear.
Yes, I could only imagine. How did you approach the school district when you realized that dyslexia may be the problem for him?
Well, in actual fact, probably about later, we moved states from Florida to North Carolina, and I realized something else was going on with Jay. He already had an IEP for speech. There seemed to be some other underlying issues, and I suddenly realized that Jay had a lot of red flags for dyslexia. His dad is dyslexic, like I said, and it runs on both sides of our family. And I approached the school and requested that they evaluate him. And that really started a whole journey for us in the world of really kind of fighting for and advocating for our child. We ended up getting a private diagnosis of dyslexia, but in that process, you know, Jay wasn't having his needs met at school, and there was a lot of conflict between us and school trying to get the services for him. And during that time, Jay was very, very stressed. He didn't understand why he couldn't do the same work as his peers. He was a very intelligent little boy, but he was getting more and more anxious and saying he didn't want to go to school. He had tummy aches, trying to avoid going to school. And eventually this all came to a head with a huge meltdown after about 3 months of this kind of tummy ache, kind of avoiding tactics. And he told us he wanted to die. He was so anxious that he just had a huge meltdown and expressed in his own way that he wanted to die. And it literally took my breath away. It was a horrible, horrible day for us. And it was really a point for us.
Yeah, that's, you know, it's very interesting to see his behavior while you're fighting with the school to try to get him the help. And
yeah,
I think other parents probably are experiencing very similar situations in their homes. And I really like how you mentioned that your husband is dyslexic, because it does have a component of
yes, absolutely.
It is genetic.
Yes.
So let me ask you a question about his performance. Did you see a discrepancy between his performance at home versus how they said he performed at school?
Yeah, school, he managed to, he was pretty much on grade level, generally. But in the work that when you went deeper into his work with the Dibbles and the M class that they use in North Carolina, when you looked into that further, you could see that there were definitely issues. He was in the reds and the yellows for a lot of the year. So anybody that knew what they were actually looking at would be very obvious, coupled with other red flags too. And then a family history, you know, he had a hard time comprehending what he was reading. He couldn't decode words, but he'd also memorized sight words. You know, on the face of it, he'd managed to kind of wing it for as long as he could. But he was starting to struggle by the end of third grade because he just couldn't cope with the volume of work anymore. Homework was very, very stressful. It would take us a long time. It would always end in tears for one or both of us. It was very stressful. It was a very anxious time. And we certainly didn't realize that he was probably absorbing some of the stress that we were having with the school. And, you know, seeing how that conflict that we were in, you know, advocating for him and trying to get him help, he was probably absorbing some of that too. And we didn't realize it. You know, you don't realize how receptive, you know, and perceptive the kids are, but they really do take on some of your stress as well. And I think you have to be very careful about that to kind of, you know, not let your stress be absorbed by them as well.
Do you remember having sleepless nights?
Oh,
staying
my gosh.
up, wondering how to help him?
Yeah. I mean, the trying to advocate for your child in a place that doesn't seem to want to help you, or is not designed or set up to be able to accommodate a child like yours, and you feel like you're hitting brick walls. You know, I just always assumed that I literally went to the school with an open heart and said, I think my child's got dyslexia. You know, what do we do next? Kind of thing, really expecting that they would help me. And we literally entered into a 2-year battle with them. And it feels like a battle. And, you know, we are very lucky in that, you know, I'm a stay-at-home mom. My husband works. English is my first language. You know, I was a police officer back in the day. You know, I'm used to reading law and certain terminology. I literally had to start and educate myself about education law, but I had the time to do that, and I had the capacity to do that. I could start to advocate from scratch. People don't get that chance or that opportunity, or, you know, it's very hard for people to do that.
Well, let me ask you, what would you say to parents now to encourage them that they're not alone.
They're definitely not alone. I would encourage people to reach out to your local Decoding Dyslexias, reach out to any local support groups that you have. In our area, there was a particular couple of girls that actually created, there was Decoding Dyslexia, but it wasn't very close to us. They created a support group via Facebook, and that group has grown and grown. And if you find families that are in the same situation as you, one voice can be very lonely, but 100 voices, school districts have to listen,
That's right.
start to I'm not saying that you have to fight alone, but there's definitely power in numbers, and just having that support and having the guidance of somebody that's already gone through it or is going through it is vital. Don't do it alone. Reach out to sites like yours. There's so many different resources out there now with social media. It's very, very easy to find resources, and just having somebody that understands what you're going through. Because I think when you have a child that has learning differences, I don't think people understand what that feels like. I think they almost think you're a little bit neurotic when they say that the schools aren't helping you.
Well, let me just, share in here that I didn't even learn about dyslexia after 4 years of teaching until I was earning my master's at the university. And a professor recommended I join the International Dyslexia Association. And now I'm a board member there. So there are, Decoding Dyslexia I love, and International Dyslexia Association. Yeah. I'm a board member in the Tri-County branch in California. So those are resources and very valuable for parents to connect with parents in those groups. Let me ask you, what's next for Jay?
Well, Jay, like I say, we're lucky. We were able to remove him from the public school system. He's now in a school for learning differences. So, he's very happy. He is honestly like a different child from the first day. He is like a different child. When the first day I picked him up from there, I pretty much burst into tears because I was so relieved. We were lucky that we could go back and then fight through due process, and we literally fought the school system. So and now I don't want to just walk away and leave other parents. I am committed to advocating for other parents too. But Jay is fine. He's very happy. We're doing good.
That's so great to hear. And I remember having a grandparent cry to me when he started seeing his granddaughter having success. We used music with the phonics-based reading program, but the genetic component was there with the girl's mother being in prison. And the grandfather was so afraid that the girl was going to go on that trajectory. Yeah. So, Amanda, I want to thank you so much for your time. And I just want to thank all the listeners for tuning in today. I hope you share this podcast with other parents. And we're going to say goodbye. My name again is Dr. Marianne Cintron with Step by Step Dyslexia Solutions. And there are other podcasts that you can listen to that talk about how we can help students be successful even though they have dyslexia. You can reach us at www.dyslexia-solutions.com. And my phone number here is 909-787-2103. Thank you so much. We're here with Amanda Harrison. Bye-bye now. God bless you, Amanda.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Where is that little stop button?